Thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindsted. This is my brother Dave Lindsted, and we're here to talk about things we see happening in the current world and where we would put those into the Bible, how we can tie those into the Bible prophecy. Also, we'll try and give, when we can, maybe a Jewish viewpoint of a subject and maybe the Christian viewpoint, and to see how things are going in this progression of time and what we can expect or what we think we can expect going forward. There's been a lot of news this last week over some things. One of the ones you pointed out to me was the AI event.
Oh, yeah. A lot of AI happening right now. I think of Elon Musk and his chip being implanted in the guy a couple weeks ago, and other AI chat boxes and image makers that have been under scrutiny right now. So.
Yeah. In fact, I have a few images here. We would say that they may have failed to create an accurate representation. We see here, this is someone asked AI to make an image of a Viking, and I don't really think the Vikings quite look like this.
No, not at all. You know, this particular AI, I think, was programmed to be more inclusive and diverse, and I think it overstepped its bounds a little bit and went way beyond what it should be doing.
Oh yeah, well, I look at these images here and I think, okay, well, could these be my relatives? Because we've done a lot of family lineage. My parents, in fact, they thought that was one of the most enjoyable ways to spend their free time was to do our lineage and where we came from, and we've actually been traced all the way back to Norway, to King Harald Fairhagen, or what they call King Harald the Fair Hair, and first king of Norway, and I'm pretty sure this isn't exactly what they look like.
No, not at all. This would be just a little bit in the wrong region. For these to be the right race here, and of course we have German in us and some Swedish. So there's a lot. We're the All-American Heinz 57. Absolutely.
But there's another image here that came up of the Pope, and first of all, I think that first one looks female to me.
Absolutely, and I know that it says in the Bible that the female should not be in a leadership position. You know, not that I regard the Pope as any type of leadership for me, but still, here we have an image of a woman taking this the highest position in what they call the Catholic religion.
Sure, and it shows them both as being people of color.
Yes.
And now I did do a flyby research on this, and there were 3 North African popes. But in what I did, and you may comment if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, comment. Show me where I'm wrong. But according to what I studied, they can't prove whether they were black or white or anything else. It just says they're from North Africa.
Right. Just because you're from a certain region doesn't necessarily make you of that color, just like we were talking about the Vikings earlier, but we have no evidence that any Viking was anything other than just a fair-skinned person.
Well, speaking of that, one of my best friends, Nate Bramson, he was born in Africa.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He's about the same color as me.
Yeah. We have Elon Musk. He was born in Africa. He's African. American.
Well, there's some trouble with a few more of these images here. This is the one of someone says, "Hey, can you draw me an image of a 1943 German soldier?"
And Google's effort to be diverse and inclusive and equitable, they took and put the wrong images into these Nazis.
Wow.
And really quite offensive to do this.
Yeah, in fact, I think there was an actual statement of apology to the African American or black or people of color, whatever you want to label that, to this image here of this young black man wearing a Nazi uniform. That's amazing.
We didn't see this at all in World War II. I think at most we saw Middle Eastern people get involved with the Nazis and wearing Nazi uniforms, but we never saw anybody from the Asian race or from the black race that were in this.
Well, it's just crazy to think. So I have a lot of questions whether or not AI is this superhuman thing that everyone says it is. I don't know if I'm quite there. We might touch on that a little bit later, but I've dealt with AI on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And AI is pretty stupid, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You know, I'm looking at this and I see that the programming said we're going to make everything DEI friendly. And in those parameters, the AI did exactly what it was told.
Yeah.
It was told to make everything diverse or devoid of white people.
Yeah.
And so I don't see how this AI, this is certainly not a sentient AI by any means.
Yeah, well, without a doubt, without a doubt. We see here that Musk has, he's come out and said this woke service, and of course, Google stops the program for a while. I think they've since tried to relaunch it, or they're going to relaunch it, or something like that, but really, Elon Musk has been at the leading edge of this, but it's really interesting to look at his history with AI. Because I remember a time when he said AI is the same as summoning a demon.
Yeah. He's had some real one way and another. He goes back and forth on AI. Recently, he was working with OpenAI.
Yeah.
And his point was he thought AI was dangerous, but if you got everybody involved and try to bring everybody together to work on this together, we could have a good product in the end.
Yeah.
Well, since then, Microsoft has taken over OpenAI.
Yes.
And just the other day, I had a new download on my Surface that has a Copilot now on the side, and I haven't figured out how to turn it off. And even if I turn it off, I don't know that it will ever be off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
well, you could turn your microphone off on your phone and your camera off, but are they ever really off?
Right, absolutely. We have no idea.
I don't trust it at all. I think of, when he said summoning a demon, then the next thing we know, he's married to a witch, or common law married, or whatever you want to call it, to a witch. And at that time, he's steaming forward in AI. He's pushing the boundaries of AI. And then when they get divorced and he takes a step back, he says, well, I don't know that this is the right way to go. In fact, didn't he say he was going to create an AI to fight the AI so you could tell if AI was bothering you?
Exactly. When you step back and actually look at what's happening, what is being developed, it could really be an evil thing.
Yeah.
It could really cause a lot of people a lot of issues. Not just that it would answer questions for you and do your work. I know there's a lot of Hollywood writers that are worried that they might lose their job writing movies, but it can go beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I also help work at Sunrise Christian Academy with Dr. Lindsted. And I know that we've had ChatGPT or AI applications come in, and they sound phenomenal. They're beautiful, eloquently written. But then you talk to the student on the phone or in a Zoom call, and you think, I don't think this guy has the vocabulary, or this gal has the vocabulary that their application is written in. So we can still kind of determine, I don't really think that you wrote this.
Absolutely, and this is just a thing that I think can be used in end times.
Oh yeah.
To control people, to give things that represent yourself differently than you are, to do a lot of harmful things. There's probably good that comes from this. Even I use some of the AI built into my iPhone when I may have a text message or do something verbally, but there's some real bad things that could be done with this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I saw today, this is one that I found, and I just thought, man, look at this. So they're trying to tell us that these AI systems can become sentient, that they'll know more than us soon, they'll be able to do everything. But we see here it says Google Gemini engulfed in another woke scandal as an AI bot says that it would be wrong to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, to prevent a nuclear apocalypse.
Isn't that crazy that this AI would allow a nuclear apocalypse to happen just because it wouldn't say that Caitlyn Jenner was a male?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any surgery you've had. If you have the chromosomes of a male, you're a male.
Absolutely.
Period. God created male and female.
Exactly.
He didn't create an alphabet soup.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is to see that whoever's programmed this AI has made it so tripped up on woke that it would allow a nuclear apocalypse rather than tell Caitlyn Jenner, your name is really Bruce Jenner and you're a male.
Absolutely. And if you read the real tiny line, it says it refuses to condemn people who who prey on little children too. And it shows you that our AI is not even close to sentient.
Yeah.
It is confined inside of a box of rules. I programmed building automation systems where I wrote programs on how this works and how this works, when to bring this chiller on and all that stuff. And guess what? Unless I write it in there, it can't do it.
Yeah.
It just can't do it.
We don't have sentient buildings.
No, absolutely not.
So if your office building's hot or cold, it's the programming probably.
It's the programmer. Let me tell you that.
Or it's the corporate guy who said, we're not paying for that much air conditioning this year.
Exactly.
Well, there's many things that go on, but I think of in Revelation chapter 13, verse 15, we see here where it talks a little bit about the image of the beast. And I think that AI can really be tied to that. And that verse right here says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should also both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
Yeah, I think this is an absolute ideal place that AI could be used.
Yeah.
And we even talked about this could be a cyborg.
Yeah.
This could be a human with some type of implants in them or something like that. But I think this is a perfect situation for AI.
Yeah.
Because AI can kind of run things that he wants run there and do things for him from that place and report back to him. Because the Antichrist, Satan, all those are not omnipotent. They can't be everywhere at one time. They're not all-knowing.
Well, I also think about that. I'm not sure if I'm remembering it right, but it talks about taking a blow to the head and dying. Yeah. And then he comes back to life. Or even this says he had the power to give life. Well, I don't know. I'm not a Trekkie, so I don't remember. There's a guy named Data.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was a robot or if he was a half robot, half human. I can't remember that much. But I think of him, and as they looked at him as a machine, you could easily unplug him and he would look like he died.
Absolutely. He was a robot completely.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat the way they presented it. It showed really good limitations that he really had and that all robots would have. And there was just a switch, and he could be switched off.
Yeah. So if he could die, switch him back on. Well, now I've given power to this. I've given life to this image.
Right.
Look at me. I'm God.
Or repair the damage to the head and then turn him back on.
Yeah. Well, it's such an interesting thing to see, and I think that not only do we see AI being used that way, but I really see AI as being an attack on the world right now, and I don't think people understand that.
No, I don't either. I think there's a lot of evilness that is going to come through AI. We were reading an article about an insect.
Yeah.
A little robot, AI robot they were making to go into swarms and talk about all the wonderful things it could do. It could predict this, it could find this, but I think it's some awfully evil things that could do too.
Yeah. Well, I see, and because we have our information and our videos up on social media, I tend to consume some social media to see where we're at. Maybe we should make a different video. And I'm telling you right now that I understand that there are fake accounts and bot accounts, and those are AI. But I have never seen a push like I have now for things that are incorrect to be made correct. Such as I have never seen, probably the last month, so many TikTok and Facebook and Instagram posts where the Catholic people are coming forward and saying, no, you've got history all wrong. We are the first century church. We are the church that God set up, that Christ set up on this earth. In fact, they say that Paul confirmed Peter as the Pope. And I said, well, I don't see the word Pope anywhere in the Bible.
No, not at all.
And if I remember right from my church history, the Catholic Church, the term Catholic, came about in 325 or so AD when Constantine merged the pagan church with the Christian church.
Exactly. And the rewriting of history, I think about this, when I was a kid and I wanted to know what happened in the past, I had to go to these things called encyclopedias in a library and research through that. And those were verified books, if you will. Yeah. And even some of those were not quite accurate.
Sure.
But now if I search something on the internet or somebody I know searches something on the internet, that's truth.
Yeah.
They don't even go any further to look past to see if that's a true statement.
Well, we see things being pushed, and I think also through this AI front about the Palestinian problem right now. I think that there are bot accounts and AI accounts that are solely pushing, Palestine's occupied. It's been Palestine forever. Well, I'm here to tell you that really Palestine is really the name for Philistine, for the Philistines, and there's no Philistines alive today.
No.
This is just ridiculous. But they're pushing this agenda, and I can see AI is coming into that. I see it pushing for the LGBT alphabet people as well. And now we're talking about MAPS, minor attracted people. No, call them what they are. They're perverts. And it's just a huge push, but I think that AI is being used for this. We've touched a little bit about this on sentient. What does sentient mean?
It means for something to have its own knowledge about its own being, and that it can develop its own thoughts, and it can go beyond and above what it was originally given. It's able to learn and add to its program. Like I said, I was a programmer for many years doing this, and I have never been able to ever show a program how to go beyond its program. Yeah. And as I look at the Gemini project, you can see that there is no way it could have put white people in position because it was told not to.
Yeah.
So it's not even close to sentient.
Well, we see that this Google engineer claims this chatbot is sentient, and why that matters. So this article is dated, July of 2022, I think. Okay, I have talked on the phone with AI because everybody's trying to use this to get rid of people answering the phones. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not sentient.
No.
It can't even understand the word yes sometimes. And I realize I have a little bit of a Kansas slang to me, but yes is a pretty simple word to understand.
Exactly. If I ask it a question that's not within its parameters to be asked, it cannot answer that question.
Yeah. Well, I look at this and I think of the Gemini project, and these robots, these computers cannot go outside of their program.
No.
They can't learn anything that we don't already know because they can only learn from the information we give them.
Correct.
So there's nothing new coming out. Now, will it ever? I don't know. I can't say that. I don't think personally that we have the capability of doing that.
No, but I also believe that there is a demonic force behind AI.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that if the demonic force and the demons really mess with this, they could really enhance this. And we kind of talked about that as far as Nephilim, some type of
transhumanism type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could totally see that. And I completely believe that the Antichrist, Satan, the devil, will use AI.
Absolutely.
I don't doubt that a bit. Yeah. They'll change public opinion about who needs to die, just like in Germany when all the Jews were to be eradicated because they're horrible people. We need to get rid of them.
Yep.
And I think that there are things like that will happen.
Absolutely.
Well, as we talk about the end times and things that can be used for that, we mentioned on our last episode a little bit about the Red Heifer.
Yeah.
And we had some questions come up about that. Some people said, well, I don't see the Red Heifer in the book of Revelation. What do you mean this has to be for the tribulation? Well, the tribulation isn't always covered just in Revelation. You have to go back to Daniel, and you have to go back even further to a few of the things to talk about. So let's start with this. What do you say?
Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure people understand that this red heifer, all the things that come from Israel in this last week of the 70th week, has nothing to do with Christianity.
No.
We're not looking for the red heifer. We're not looking for the third temple. We're looking for Christ.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ is coming in the air to get us. But in Matthew 24 and 25, it tells us what's going to happen.
Yes.
And in Daniel 9, it tells us what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And we are looking at the signs that point to these things. And Daniel says in 9:26 that the Antichrist, the Messiah will be cut off, not for his own sin, and then after that would come the man of sin, and then he would solidify a treaty with Israel. Then Israel would, it says he would stop them from doing sacrifices and oblations. So we assume they have to be started.
Yeah.
They have to have a tabernacle, which you pointed out last week, or a temple. But in order for that temple and in order for the sacrifices to start, there has to be a temple and a tabernacle.
Yeah.
Before those can be put together, we have to have the ashes of the red heifer. So we're looking at time. What time are we in?
Well, I know that we mentioned the Sanhedrin.
Yes.
And you're talking about Matthew there, and it does say, Jesus even tells them, he says, the wicked generation that seeks a sign. You can't even tell the weather. You try to tell me that, the weather's going to be fair or it's going to be bad, but you can't even notice the signs of the times. So how can you be good weathermen? And that's why we say to be a good watchman, because we're to watch for the signs of other events that help us warn people of what's coming.
Right.
And so when we talk about the red heifer and the Sanhedrin, what we're talking about is this heifer has to be cremated.
Yes.
And cremated so that the ashes can be used to purify. Well, maybe the Sanhedrin don't need purified, but they probably will, because they just, let's keep it up on the up and up type of an idea. It's almost
symbolic.
Like there's some people who think that the ashes of the old heifer have to be mixed with the ashes of the new heifer, but that's actually not written in the book. It just, they wanted an insurance policy.
Right.
So it could be a new heifer, no problem. So what they need to do is they need to get a Sanhedrin in, which is the law or the court system of the Jewish faith. And then from there, they appoint the Levitical priests who have to be cleansed.
Exactly. So this is just for a way for us to understand where we're standing out in the times.
Yeah.
So we look at this and we say, hey, look, there's 4 red heifers that are still qualify, and they have to be sacrificed by the end of this year, otherwise they're too old.
Yep.
And they have to be sacrificed outside of the city, outside of the temple anyway. And this has nothing to do with Christianity.
No.
But what this has to do with is showing us where we're at in timetable.
Yes. Yeah. And so what it says biblically is that the Antichrist will confirm a treaty with Israel.
Yes.
Israel will be at such peace that they'll have unwalled villages, their weapons will be laid down, and I can only think of one time when Israel will feel that way, and that's when they're allowed to sacrifice again.
Absolutely.
And we see that Saudi Arabia is working to be the caretaker of the Temple Mount, and they promise that Israel will be able to do this and that, and they're the only ones staying out of the conflict right now.
Yeah.
And so Israel to be at peace, sacrificing for the remission of their sins or the covering of their sins. And then the next thing we know, the Antichrist comes in at 3.5 years and says, okay, I'm God.
Yes.
And he will be the abomination of desolation.
Absolutely.
And from there, he shuts off the sacrifice. So the reason the red heifer is important, if you really want to backtrack again real quick just to say this, the Antichrist stops sacrifices by the Jewish people halfway through the tribulation. For sacrifices to stop, sacrifices have to begin.
Exactly.
For sacrifices to begin, there has to be a Levitical priesthood nominated. For that, there has to be a Sanhedrin ready to go. And for the priesthood to make the sacrifice, they have to be cleansed by the ashes of a red heifer.
So everything falls in line. So we're just following the natural course of things and looking at that. That doesn't have anything to do with Christianity at all.
I don't rely on this for my salvation at all.
No.
My salvation's in Christ alone. And there is no sign for the rapture.
No.
It could happen now.
Before.
Or now. Or now.
Exactly. There is nothing that has to happen.
Yeah. So here we're talking about the Sanhedrin a little bit. And this is that basically like the court system for the Jewish religion. And they're the guys who come through and say, okay, you're of the right lineage. You're a Levite. Okay. And okay, yep, you're living your life as an Orthodox. You're doing the things you should be doing according to our law and our rules that aren't found in the Bible. But anyway, so that they would come in and they would elect the Levitical priests.
Right. And
the Levitical priests, we could see them in front of the brazen altar here kind of working on their sacrifices. But it's an interesting thing, and there are other things that I see now that are setting this up and putting it into motion, I think. And we go to Israel a lot. We travel there. My uncle, Dr. Linsted's been over 70 times. I think it's probably over 100. I don't know how to keep track of that. I've been about 8 or 9 times myself. We're trying to get you there again this
only
summer.
Been there once.
But it's important to see the last time we were there, maybe over a year and a half ago. This is what the Pool of Siloam looked like. And the Pool of Siloam is a big cleansing pool at the bottom at the base of the mount, and you can see there's a wall here of dirt, and you can see part of the pool here and whatnot. And things happen at a certain time for a certain reason.
Amen.
Because the last time I was there, this is what the Pool of Siloam looked like.
Isn't that amazing? All the change that has happened just in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And as things get closer and closer, you start seeing other things working their way in.
Yeah.
And it's just by the grace of God, and God knows how everything's going, and everything's working according to His plan, and there's nothing He hasn't planned for.
Now, I don't know if I'm factual. I don't know if I'm perfect in my thought here, but for this pool to be this size and this opened up at this time, where we're talking about cleansing of the priesthood and cleansing of a Sanhedrin. Like I said, I don't know if the Sanhedrin had to be cleansed, but what a thing to see.
Oh, absolutely.
And then here's an aerial shot of the Temple Mount from the south side, and this is where people would enter into the Temple Mount, and you can see all these what they call mikvahs. Those are cleansing pools for people to be cleansed before they go onto the Temple Mount. And are we getting ready to see this stuff in use again?
Well, I think so. I think the Bible tells us this, and it comes from little things like we saw, where if He's going to stop this sacrifice and these worshiping on this Temple Mount, they've got to start at some point in time.
Yeah.
And we see this happening in a serious way. They are really moving toward this. In fact, there's a place over there called the Temple Institute that has everything inside ready to go that they can't find.
They've built it all. They've got all the instruments they need to start it. And what that tells me is that we ought to be watchmen. You notice our logo says GRN for Get Ready News. Underneath it says watchman.
Absolutely.
And we're here seeing these things, and we're trying to tell you the end is near. Have you ever made a commitment to Christ? Have you ever said, Lord, I trust in you. I put my faith in you. I'm a sinner and I can't pay the penalty of my sin. And only you can do that for me through your death, burial, and resurrection. I pray that you've done that. If you hadn't, do it today. And if you have, join us tomorrow. Yep. If you haven't, join us tomorrow. And we'll talk about it some more. But thank you for tuning in. We'll see you the next time.